Okay, now that we're jumping into the Amazonian herbal system, let's start off with the immune boosting and Candida clearing tonic elixir. And when I look at Amazonian herbalism, it's really interesting. Every single herbal system has their own proclivities, has their own kind of overarching theme for what their focus is and how they focus their different herbs or organize their herbs and formulas. And when I look at the Amazonian system and I think of a place like the Amazon and what people have to contend with, you're dealing with a tropical and subtropical environment, basically, like a rainforest. What happens in there? It's damp, it's wet, it's muddy, it's swampy. Well, if you look at the inner ecosystem of our body, what would thrive in a type of environment like that? Your inner ecosystem. If your inner ecosystem, your inner ecology becomes damp, wet, moist, things aren't metabolizing right, you don't have digestive fire, you're not producing enough stomach acid to incinerate and metabolize your food, infections start to run amok. And typically Candida and bacterial infections kind of take over. That's what a dysbiosis basically is, an imbalance of beneficial to opportunistic bacteria. It's basically that, you have a damp, wet, swampy condition in your inner ecosystem. And so that's what we're going to really work on here. And when I look at the herbs in the Amazonian system, every one of them to some extent appears to be opposing that damp wetness, opposing bacterial infections, opposing fungal or viral or parasitic infections, and really seems to be focused on the digestive system and the intestinal tract and elimination. It's really interesting when I really piece it all together and how these things all seem to be pointing at the same message. So in this message, that's what we're going to create. Now, in our tea base, we have two of the top Amazonian herbs, which are pau d'arco and cat's claw, otherwise known as uno de gato. And these are my two favorite out of that whole system. I love chuchu huasi and chanca piedra and guayuse, yerba mate, all those amazing herbs, so many more. But these are my two favorites. These always stuck out to me because when you look at the formulations, traditional Amazonian formulations, pau d'arco and cat's claw typically get paired up together. Now, pau d'arco is a type of bark that is very elastic, it's very pliable, very similar to euphorbium bark out of the Chinese system, but has completely different properties. Yes, it is good for the joints. Yes, it is good for the ligaments. Yes, it is good for the latex material of the vaginal wall, for pregnancy and things of that nature. Yes. But it's also amazing for the immune system. It's an immunobooster and basically also a immunomodulator as well. So it's going to be great for that. And your immune system is primary whenever you're dealing with something like Candida or any digestive disturbance in an infection. Your immune system has to be able to get a handle on the situation. Otherwise, these organisms basically ferment, they create metabolic off waste, and that is actually what causes the systemic issues like brain fog and inflammation systemically throughout the body. And so we want to pretty much design a tonic that's going to address all those issues all at once. Now, the other great thing about pau d'arco and why it's really focused on this tonic is that it's an antifungal. It's one of the best antifungals, one of the best anti-candida tonics, herbs that I've ever come across. In fact, just a quick aside on that, I have a very good friend of mine who had mercury amalgam fillings most of his life. And if you know anything about mercury chemistry, you probably have come across the fact that chronic candida issues have a lot to do with mercury toxicity, methyl mercury, mercury that gets outgassed from the amalgam fillings and starts to go through the circulatory system, and it has an affinity for going into the digestive system and seems to have some kind of relationship with the proliferation, the progression of candida. So a lot of people are wondering hey, I've done all the probiotics, I've done all the body ecology diet, I've cut everything out, and there's still this persistence of fungal infection. Things just aren't flowing right. And I talk to them and I'm like, oh wow, okay, well, you know, what's the deal here? Do you have mercury? And yes, they either do have mercury or they recently got the mercury amalgam fillings removed, but there's still the residue of that mercury that's still causing the issue. So anyways, my friend, he had Candida issues for quite some time, and he told me after years of experimenting with all kinds of things, really the only thing that kept the Candida infection at bay was Pouty-Arco tea. That always stuck with me. I always thought that was just like really fascinating. It lined up with the research, and that's why I recommend it to pretty much everyone. And then the other herb is cat's claw. Cat's claw has many of the same benefits for the immune system and for inflammation, but it's an antibacterial, right? So now we're looking at the 1-2 punch. The antifungal component in the Pouty-Arco and the antibacterial component in the cat's claw, and then we bring them together, right? That's the idea of this tonic as the base. And then moving on beyond that, the tonic herb extracts that we're using, 2 specific herbs, reishi mushroom and turmeric. We're using turmeric because it is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatories that has ever been discovered. Yeah, one of the absolute best, for sure. And we want that in our tonic. We want as much antioxidant support as we can get. So that's why we have the turmeric in there. And then the reishi mushroom is an immunomodulator, one of the best. It really increasing the intelligence of our white blood cells so they're more adaptable, they're more sovereign, if you will. They're able to really target foreign organisms and foreign invaders of their own or they're able to take initiative, I should say. They don't need us to to put a bunch of stuff in our body for them to work right. Once you have enough reishi mushroom, enough the polysaccharides, the beta glucans in reishi flowing through your system, they just go and do their thing automatically, and it fortifies the immune system. Another thing about reishi mushroom, it's a fungus that's antifungal. In fact, reishi mushroom is antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral, antimicrobial. It's pretty much anti-infection altogether, anti-pathogen. So that's, again, why we're putting the reishi mushroom in this formula here. And we also have one more important ingredient that everyone needs to just get clear on. As your fat base, if you're going for anti-infection or anti-candida specifically, there is one fat that you need to be eating in copious amounts, in my opinion, which is coconut oil. Coconut oil is very easy to metabolize and digest, and it also is antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral, anti-pathogenic all across the board. So we're going to use that as well. Put all that in there. And now, when you're dealing with Candida, it's not recommended to do very much sugar at all. You can't avoid sugar, so if you feel like it's okay, you do okay with a little bit of honey. Honey has antifungal compounds in it as well, interestingly enough, but we're not going to do the honey right here. We're just going to go with straight stevia, and I'm going to I'll wait till I put the liquid in there. But I'm going to go with straight stevia, and I also put in a tablespoon of lucuma powder as well to increase the creaminess and to just give it a little bit more of a favorable flavor. And then salt. I can't let this go without mentioning salt. One of the benefits of sea salt that I did not mention until this point is that it helps to alleviate a damp, wet condition. In the Chinese herbal system, they say don't eat too much raw food, too much wet food, because you can accrue a damp, wet spleen and a damp, wet, muddy, kind of swampy digestive system that I've been kind of alluding to. Salt actually is the counterbalance to that. Raw foodists that don't get enough sodium or salt in their diet tend to run more alkaline than natural, which is called alkalosis, right? So when you're too alkaline, and they lose stomach acid, and they're no longer able to digest their food appropriately, and then they can give way to pathogens. Sea salt is the remedy for that. Sea salt is drying. Potassium is wet. It makes you like an ocean. right? It cools things down. Salt is drying. Sodium is drying. So it kind of gives that balance. And salt, by the way, or sodium, is the precursor mineral for producing stomach acid. And that's what you need to combat any of these types of digestive infections. So let's throw our salt in there. Let's pour in our tea base of Pau d'Arco and cat's claw. And then let's put in 2 drops, not 2 droppers, guys, 2 drops of our Omega Vanilla Stevia. Of course, as always, you can use whatever flavor you want. It's totally up to you. This is what I'm doing. 1, 2, boom, that's it. That's all you need. Okay, let's blend this thing up. Okay, so we now have our immune boosting and anti-Candida tonic. Let's see how it turned out. Whew. The turmeric in there, by the way, whoa. You can see right here how it gives that goldish tint, that gold milky tint there. And you find out what your dosage is, how much turmeric you like in there, whatever feels and tastes good for you. Yeah, look at that right there, that golden, how do you say, Goldilocks, right? That Goldilocks tonic. Pretty good, pretty good. If you're not used to making tonics without like a honey or maple syrup or syrupy sweetener, then this might be a little bit of an adjustment, but there's all kinds of different options that you can play with. We've mentioned many of them on previous videos. If you want to put in a little bit of honey and a little bit of salt with the honey to spike it up, feel free. It's all good. Really good. That's a powerful one.